Hi, I'm Winifred Davis. I am the voice and the face behind the previous 7 videos on this channel. I have decided to complete my self-soul contract and step from out of the shadows with this video. You will see me reading most often because I do not want to miss important things that I have to say to you. First of all, I wear many hats. For more than 35 years, I have been a psychic medium, shaman, say Obia woman in Jamaica with a bad connotation, but intention is what matters. It is what one does with one's gift that determines whether something is bad or good. Now let us take money for example. Money is an inanimate object. It cannot walk, it cannot talk, it cannot do anything on its own. It needs an animator or puppeteer. What that puppeteer or animator does, good or bad, is what determines whether that money is good or bad. I am a traditional and spiritual healer and counselor. I'm also an essayist, a poet, and a writer, and a former spoken word movement performer. I've written books spanning many topics. The majority of those books, however, deal with the truth that is reincarnation and its facts, the soul and its history and its journey, death, love, war, health, history, and other topics, all seen through the eyes of the soul. Now, what is the difference between a shaman and a psychic medium? Psychic medium sees and can help with advice, sometimes engage in communicating with lost spirits, helping them over, children, for example, to the other side, into the light. A shaman, on the other hand, is not only a psychic medium, but more. A shaman makes things happen. That's the best way to put it. Shaman can effect changes. A shaman, for example, can find a needle in a haystack and facilitate that needle to return to its owner without the owner having to go to that haystack once that owner is told, and to have to search through that haystack. Another example is a stolen car. The incidence of stolen cars is quite high, and so oftentimes this car is just not found. It leaves the country, perhaps, like in Canada. It's gone to another place. If you act in time, as soon as that vehicle is stolen, and you know it's stolen, and you visit a shaman, provide the proper information, chances are very high that your vehicle will be found. You are not going to look for it physically. You might get a call from the police or some other way to tell you that your vehicle has been located. Exorcisms. Shaman also do that. There are some psychic mediums who might be able to do some exorcism, normally very light ones, very light spirits I call it. However, if you end up with a spirit like the one that was in The Exorcist, well, there's a challenge. And if you end up like one and this is documented in Jamaica in the 70s, one called Kopi, and as I said, this is documented, then you have got to run for your money. Those spirits require the best of the shaman. Oftentimes, a priest is not good enough unless he has shamanic gifts of high vibrations and the guides that he works with. If you have no one that's actively working with you, we all have guides, but perhaps they are not destined to do, that's not what they are going to do. And that's not their skill set, so to speak, for you. Then you cannot do or execute a proper exorcism. You alone cannot do it. You need guides of high vibrations to handle something of spirit, like the one in The Exorcist, or the spirit they call Kopi in Jamaica. And I will be writing a book. I'm gathering the information now about such cases and adventures, if you want to call it, and exploits that I had and that my husband had and that we both had together in dealing with such spirits. Now, a shaman can also deal with health. But I will say here that a humble shaman knows when health issues should be referred to a medical practitioner, the orthodox medical practitioner. A shaman knows, a humble one, knows not to pretend or to act as if that is their job when it's not. And I'll get into that later on. Now, 24 of the 35 years that I have spent working as a psychic medium, shaman, traditional and spiritual healer and counselor, I spent working with my husband, who, until he died 11 years ago, was doing his vocation, this vocation, for 60 years. He was a legendary Obeah man, well known in every parish in Jamaica throughout the late 60s, 70s, 80s, into the 90s and early 2000s. Now, he was an Obeah man's Obeah man. What do I mean by that? Other Obeah men or shaman would come and see him when there were cases they could not handle, or if they needed help for themselves. He, on the other hand, there was no one he was going to, because he was where the buck stopped. During the 24 years that I worked along with him, we saw tens of thousands of clients from every continent, different races, the well-known and the unknown, the rich, the poor, the educated, uneducated, politicians, countrymen, priests and pastors, electricians, homemakers, children, the elderly, adults, and all the in-between, the sick and the disabled. Now, our meeting was prophesied 40 years before we actually met. And that prophecy was given to my mother in the 1950s before I was born. Now, that whole story and my husband's story, which is sometimes it sounds fictional, is available on my website, which is listed below. Now, I have taken the work that he did and that I did with him to a different level, because this is my sole purpose. And what I deal with now, along with my shamanic work, is reincarnation. I am given messages to deliver via my writings and my teachings on the truth that is reincarnation and its facts, to empower all of us to explain the how and the why those in the spiritual vocations are able to do what we do, and our limitations. Explain, for example, why even though or although I can, or another shaman can, or my husband could do certain things, but there were certain cases that, well, could not do. Though they were in the minority of cases, facts and the truth that is reincarnation explains why. The truth that is reincarnation and its facts will also explain the incongruities, the inequities, the wars, the exceptions to the rules in health, relationships, life in general. It explains everything around us. And when I say exceptions to the rules in health, for example, you have two people who are ill with cancer, any form of cancer, and all things being equal, let's say the playing field is level. The determination to live, same state of health, doctors, the protocol that they will be using, and one survives, but the other does not. Why? Often if we look into the history of the soul of the person who did not survive, and we'll also look into the history of the person who did survive, we will find that the one who did not survive, that was the soul contract they had made, and that was the way they had to go and chose to go. And the other one, that's the same thing. And so we could understand and see why there was that exception to the rules or the protocol, and why it didn't work in that individual's case. Now, another thing I will add, and I've listed the title of that book below, is just for documentation purposes, that my husband was also a revival musician, and an awesome one. Recordings of his revival music is on my website as well, and he is one of the musicians mentioned in the book by Kenneth Bilby. He's an ethnomusicologist and anthropologist from the Smithsonian in Washington, and I listed the title of his book below. It is called Words of Our Mouth, and it goes on. Okay, so you could check that one out as well. Now, I started this channel to discuss in simple terms, devoid of dogma, the soul and its journey, the truth that is reincarnation, and it is a truth, and its facts, how knowledge of those facts and that truth can help us to better understand who we are and why we are here in this earthly plane. And that will help to give us agency over our lives. This knowledge and this understanding will give us the wisdom necessary to avoid yielding our free will to others. Each man is responsible for the well-being of his soul. While there have been many periods of transition, and this includes environmental, during man's sojourn on earth, there have been fewer period of greater transitions. The period in which we now find ourselves is one of those fewer, greater periods of transition. And I know there are many psychic mediums and others who say that. But I will explain, and I've done that in the book that I have coming out in a couple of weeks, Thoughts on the Past. I go into detail as to why and how we can say that. Now I will make a few comments before I get into the topic of reincarnation, seeing that this is actually the first video that I am doing talking about reincarnation. The first 7 videos dealt with the war on Gaza, different aspects of it. And as we know, maybe you don't, but the UN says that there are about 120 conflicts going on earth at this time. And why I chose, or my guides chose, the one going on in the Middle East on Gaza, is because it's a providential war. And I deal with that in the book, Thoughts on the Past. And of course, I've 7 videos. I've dealt with a lot of things as well. So it is, how would I put it? It is very much a part of reincarnation, because it serves to prove, it serves as living testament to prove that the facts, that it is indeed true, that reincarnation is a truth. Facts like historical grudges, victimhood, those are not relevant. They're not real. But we will get into that another time, and as I said in my book. Now, it is important for you to understand certain details, so bear with me. I just have to lay the groundwork so you understand where I'm coming from, who I am, and who I am not. I am not without blemish. None of us are. That is why we are here in this earthly plane. I view the world through clear lenses and not rose-colored ones. I also look in the past through a rear view mirror with clear lenses and not imaginary, wistful, rose-colored ones. I am an idealist and a dreamer, but I do not live in dreams or in dreamland. I'm also a pragmatist. I believe that we should always carry a carrot, but never forget that stick. Sometimes, for the greater good, as last resort, we have to use that stick. In a world of all imperfect men, many things are gray and not black and white, so intention matters. I subscribe to no religious system, for it is, as John Adams, the second president of the United States, said, and there were others who believed thus, that this world would be a better place if there were no religion in it. I believe in universal justice and not the partial, selective, imposter justice of man. What do I mean by the partial, selective, imposter justice? The humanitarian laws and the laws of the ICC, the International Criminal Court. Well, some American politicians say that the ICC was created, and I suppose it was, for Africans, and I guess some Eastern Europeans. Not for the powerful, of course. In other words, the ICC was created for mostly people of color, but not for white Europeans, except for a few Eastern Europeans. Now that is indeed the selective imposter, partial justice of man. Fortunately for us, we do have universal justice. With the imposter justice of man, there is an exception to every rule. But with universal justice, there are no exceptions to the rule. Universal justice is without favor or fear. I believe in the truth. There are no sides to the truth. The truth stands unopposed, not given to my side or to your side. And although at times when I speak, when I see injustice, I might sound harsh and critical, for I am like everyone else here on this earth, learning, trying to restore equilibrium to my soul, but then I will speak harshly and critical, because only when we face the facts and not pretend can we move forward. For example, only when we admit that racism exists rather than saying, oh no, there is no such thing as racism, only then can we work on eliminating racism. That's a very tall order, because if it's not race, it will be something else, and which is something that the truth that is reincarnation and its facts explains why that will be so, and will always be so until each and every one of us has reached the point where we have restored our souls. Now, I believe in unconditional love and forgiveness and redemptive guilt. And when I falter, and I do, not just once, many times, with humility, I forgive myself and try my best to institute corrective actions to do better and move on. And I know sometimes I will falter again, with the same thing. What can I do? Cut myself some slack and try again. I know that only with unconditional forgiveness and redemptive guilt and unconditional love of myself and others that I will be able to gain the wings to fly away and be free. At the end of each day, and this is not a joke, I look in my mirror of self-reflection. It is a mirror with which I have traveled throughout this journey and throughout my journeys, most of them. I am guided by the divine principles of the fatherhood of God. That means that there is something greater than us. And the brotherhood of man, doing unto others as we would have them do unto us. My guide said to say, them do unto us. Love. That which I do unto my brother, I do unto myself. For I am my brother's keeper. One divine, universal love. I'm not here to be a leader or to lead anyone. I don't want to lead anyone. I'm not here to proselytize. I'm not here to convert anyone. Each man must evolve according to their own light. And I'm using third person here, plural. Now, if you are a Christian, if you're Hindu, if you're Muslim, if you're Buddhist, Jain, or atheist, whatever it is, that's okay. Just remember one caveat. That one caveat are those divine principles. The fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man. And so on. Remember that. Love. Don't say to someone, well, I'm superior to you, or what I believe is superior. No. Do what you do best and what you believe, but do no harm. And do no harm, I say. And forget about your supremacist views that only your way and your view is the view that we should all have. Sorry. I am here not to prove the merits, and I'm going to take poetic license here and say and the demerits, or to argue against science or any belief system, except if, once again, as I said, the actions contravene the divine principles and usurping the will of others. We must do no harm. I am giving you with respect to anything and anyone. I am just a vessel, often to serve as the living proof and testament, and we all are, of the facts of reincarnation and the truth that it is. All of us are, but I am a vessel, and part of my journey, my sole purpose, is to serve as a living example and testament to it. Now, if you do not understand something that I say, please feel free to go to my website and then email me, or just post what you don't understand in the comments below. I will get back to you. Now, as I say, please do not freely interpret anything I say. What do I mean by that? If I say that the sky is blue, that is exactly what I mean. I don't mean anything else. I don't mean that the sky is sky blue, indigo blue, marine blue, midnight blue. I said it is blue. Blue is blue. That, I guess, would include all shades of blue. And why is it important not to freely interpret what I say? Because I am given messages, and if I do not write them down properly, my pen stops. I can't write. And so it is important to say exactly what I say. Because when we begin to interpret however we want to interpret, we end up with, first, a goldfish. A goldfish is 1 inch long and swimming around in the aquarium. And by the time it reaches to the 10th or the 20th person, that goldfish has become a whale, swimming in an ocean. A whale is not even a fish. It is a mammal. And an aquarium is certainly not an ocean. And let us take Jerome, the patron saint of translations. And an interesting thing to note here, Jerome and his wife were the leading proponents, the leading advocates for monasticism and celibacy in the church. In 382 AD, Pope Damasus asked Jerome to revise the Latin Bible, which would become the Latin Vulgate. There are many people who did not like his method of translation. And in responding to them, he said, or he admitted, that like the copyists, well, he said the copyists were major forgers, outright forgers. He wasn't a forger per se, but he admitted that he, like them, omitted, misread, or misplaced words and phrases, and sometimes invented, in other words, just flat out made it up. You can get more information on that and more references if you read my book, Another World Through the Eyes of the Soul, and that is listed on my website as well. Now, once again, please do not freely interpret what I say. Please say exactly what I say. That is why I write and often sound repetitive and perhaps a bit pedantic. I am a vessel and a messenger. So I want everyone to understand the message. They are important. Now, I will, when I have had, for example, enough questions to explain or break certain things that I have said down to make them more easily understood, I will create a booklet free of charge, and you can send and ask for it. Okay? Now, if I don't know an answer to a question that you pose to me, I will not pretend as if I do. I will tell you that I do not know and that I will get back to you. And when it comes to this topic of reincarnation, it's not like if I'm reading you and you want to know my opinion or what is the best way or what do the spirits suggest. This fact that is reincarnation is different. I can't necessarily, if I don't know the answer then, doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to get it right away as you ask that question. I have to wait until they feel that I am ready as well. And I will explain how that works. I am growing with you, right? Each day my knowledge on a topic expands. And when I first started dealing with reincarnation, I had the masks. Might have been half a page. And now it's just pages upon pages, more details. So I constantly have to revise. It will never change, just adds more details so that we can all understand more in depth what we're dealing with. Another thing, as I said, I'm going with you. Once more, I am not perfect, and I don't pretend to be. On what I call the ladder of soul restoration, and that I will explain as we go along. There are some, I'm on a certain rung of that ladder, a certain step. There are some who are higher than my rung on that ladder. They're on higher rungs. There are others who are on the same rung as I am. And still yet there are others who are on the lower rungs. So, I'm not claiming that I am perfect. Now, I'm not familiar with the tarot and many terms used by many psychic mediums, or if you're doing meditation, and I'm not familiar with any of that really. And I don't know much about astrology. But that doesn't mean anything. Each person works differently and with different things. One might say they're given their gifts differently. In Jamaica, for example, if you would take the cards out to read, there's some people, especially of the older generation, would tell you that you don't know what you're doing. Point blank. But we know that's not true. Because many people read with cowrie shells, as in West Africa and Senegal. Or they read sand. Some people read the tea leaves. Or in Turkey, I believe, they read coffee grounds. Some people read a plain deck of cards rather than the tarot. I had a dear friend. I knew her for about 40 odd years from I was a teenager. And she was, down to the details, the most accurate, detailed psychic I have ever seen. And she read with tea leaves and a plain deck of cards. Some take your watch, some candles and water, and some nothing at all, and some are all of the above, including crystal balls. Now, confidentiality is important in the work that I do as a psychic medium and shaman, especially as a shaman. And it should be for anyone who practices this vocation. So, it is from your lips to my ear, not out this one, not from my lips to somebody else's lips, or somebody else's ear, rather. Now, I am naturally a secretive person, and that comes from the many betrayals and the exile, hangings and executions that I have encountered because of those betrayals in more than a few of my past lives. And perhaps that is why maybe I prefer to work behind the scenes. I do not like the limelight. I do not even like taking pictures. I do not like being the center of attraction. If I have to give a speech or perform, I do it and then I recede into the background. I don't crave attention. Some people are attention hogs. I don't crave that. I'm quite satisfied to stay in the background. But, as I said, part of my cell-soul contract, in order to teach and write, I needed to step from out of the shadows. My first 7 videos are illustrative of this, because I didn't think it was important for me to necessarily show my face, but just only for you to hear the message that came from my heart and from my guides. In order for me to fulfill my soul contracts and the rest of my soul purpose, the Venusian and Neptunian karmic journey that I have to fill, I had to step from out of the shadows. I chopped all my hair off, and I thought, I kept delaying doing this video, and today I said, okay, I'm gonna do it, but oh my God, my hair, I have to fix it after having chopped it all off. It's not all gussied up, and my guide said, gussied up or not gussied up, today is not passing, you must do this video. And so here I am. I must fulfill my soul purpose, the one karmic journey that I'm on now, and the one that I chose, because we choose our journeys, the one that I chose to fulfill at this time, in this karmic journey, in this lifetime. And so begins that final journey. This is the final part of my karmic journey in this lifetime. As I said before, I believe that everyone must evolve according to their own light. If you do not like what you hear, please do not leave rude comments. Just change the channel, so to speak. I have a keen sense of myself. I know who I am. I know my self-purpose and the history of my soul and its many journeys. Please, I will not be deterred. Use your time to do some good, something positive, to advance your soul as well. Spend some time at the food bank, and if you don't have the time, donate something. Give some food or money. If your neighbor needs help, perhaps they're elderly, maybe they might need you, you could probably stop at the grocery store for them. Help them clean their snow. I cannot be bullied. Now, let us begin what our purpose is here, and that is to learn about reincarnation, the truth that it is and its facts. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make it simple. And this video is long, and please bear with me. I won't make the other videos this long, but of course you can always come back, pause and come back, okay? Now, I am going to tell you as well about reincarnation. We're just going to give a broad overview, and then in consequent videos, I will take them step by step and give you in-depth knowledge and understanding. Now, as I said, the fun part is I'm going to show you how to apply reincarnation and its facts in your life and what it says about you, to know yourself, to make that journey. They say it's a hard road to travel and a mighty long way to go. But if you just know about your soul's journey, it can help you to navigate that hard road to travel and to shorten that long road to go. And I'm excited because I know my soul purpose, and I know so much about the different journeys I've been on, and every day I discover more and more. Now, who are we? We are eternal spirits experiencing temporary human life. We were created equal as spirits with a free will and a conscience. The conscience is that light that guides that free will. That conscience is what makes each of us responsible for the well-being of our soul. We cannot blame the ubiquitous devil and demons, or our general for that matter, that we're just following orders. We and we alone are responsible for the well-being of our soul. As spiritual beings, not of the earth, nor intended for the earth, we are indeed extraterrestrial, or ET, extraterrestrial beings. Having thrown our souls out of balance, we envision things in order that we have on earth so that we can explain them. We are prisoners of our senses while we are on earth. We do not just know. We need to see, to hear, to feel, to taste what makes sense to us. And so it does matter if we're seeing reptiles. It doesn't matter really. Birds or fish in other planes. This is what, as prisoners of our senses, understand. That is why, for example, we see our dearly departed. When we see them, if they died when they were 90 years old, we see them very young. And that's partly vanity when they choose to show themselves. Sometimes they show themselves as being young because they looked better young. Now, when I see my great-grandmother, I see her exactly as when she left this earth, because she was a nonconformist and she didn't care. Now, some of us, we just know. Some of us just know, but sometimes we also see, hear, and feel. Some of us can travel and be in a trance state while we are wide awake and know exactly what is going on around us in this earthly plane as well as the spiritual plane all at once. We don't have to worry and hoping that we get carried away and not come back in time. For most, they need protection when they travel back. These things we will discuss in later videos, and we'll expand them in a book. Now, the spirit versus the soul. Spirit is without a body. Spirit is indivisible. one spirit or one soul cannot inhabit different bodies at the same time. Being able to see the past, present, and future, as we do in the Akashic records, does not imply or mean that we are living all three, past, present, and future, simultaneously. No, irrefutably not. In a later video, I will explain why this is not the case, using the testament and living proof as given in a pure, lean, no fat fashion, simply truth fashion. The soul is found in no particular part of the body. It radiates outside of the body. It animates. That's what it does. And sometimes we'll say those who feel. The soul, one might say, is in the heart. And for people who's, like intelligence or whatever, it's in the brain. But it radiates around, it animates the body. Even when the body physical is at rest, the soul never sleeps. Because the soul, the spirit, never tires. It needs neither food, drink, nor sex. It knows neither time nor space. It is not a prisoner of the senses until it chooses to be with its own will. Now, a spirit and a soul. What's the difference? As I said, a spirit is without the cloak of the mortal body, and once you reincarnate and you accept the body, so to speak, then becomes a soul. Now, why are we here? We are here to begin or to bring our soul back into equilibrium. We strayed from our past. We were created equal as spirits with, as I said, a free will and a conscience to guide that free will. Sometimes I will say that we are born not equal as men, and I don't mean that in a pejorative sense. We are born not equal, meaning we're born with different gifts and different talents based on the different karmic journeys that we have had. So some of us are born with a talent to sing, some with the talent to draw, some with the talent of sight, and we choose what we want to do. So in that sense, we are not equal. We're all doing different things. Now, according to Edgar Cayce, and Edgar Cayce, of course, was a brilliant, absolutely brilliant psychic medium healer during the first half of the 20th century. He says that when we were created as spirits, we are on our journey, our destiny, and we happen to witness the processes that were going on Earth. Curious, which is okay. Everything had a mold. Crustaceans, they had their shells. So you have crabs and lobsters and crayfish. But we spirits, we didn't have a mold. And so it looked like fun. And some of us decided to fight the creatures who were a part of these processes for their molds. and we got trapped. And so other spirits, rescue souls we might call them, came to help. A mold was created for them so they could enter the atmosphere. They came down, but some of those who came down, they sort of liked the power that they now had over their brothers who were trapped. And so that's when slavery began. Others did their jobs, but we'll get into that. I'm just giving you an overview here. In Jamaica, they say, "Stanna si no brok no dance, fast mash it up." It's okay to stand and watch that dance, but once you decide to get involved and meddle, that's when the trouble begins. And so, alas, we became fallen angels. Some of us had committed murder. Some of us had usurped the free will of others, of our brothers, and created imbalance in their souls. And we need to restore that equilibrium to the soul in order to continue on our journey. We rebelled against our destiny. And Lucifer did not rebel against the destiny, and he is not the fallen angels. Each and every one of us is. Now, what is karma? Karma is the law of cause and effect. To every action, there is an equal reaction. Whatsoever a man soweth, so shall he reap. If you live by the sword, you shall die by the sword. That can be understood in rhyme or verbatim, in the current lifetime or another. Do not think of karma then as revenge. I don't think of it that way. It is there to bring our souls back into equilibrium so that we can return to our destiny, our journey, whatever that journey was, and we'll get into that. Now, remember what I just said, that if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And you hear people say, sins of the father. No. There really is no such thing. You incur a debt, so to speak, or incur karmic debt. You and you alone are responsible for that debt. You have to expiate, cleanse your soul of that mistake, that spiritual mistake, and that is what a sin is, in order to restore equilibrium to your soul. Because just imagine if you had to pay for other people's debts. That's not right. That's not fair. And our Creator, sometimes I refer to that Creator as that something that is greater than us. Doesn't matter by whatever name we attribute, be it divine consciousness, God, Allah, whatever name, doesn't matter. That's something that is greater than us. Does not engage in the collective punishment. Incorrect action that man, imperfect man, engages in, as we see in Gaza. Now, when one of my sons was about 6 years old, one of his classmates did something in class, and the teacher decided he was going to punish the whole class, and I think they had to stand up on one leg or something like that. Now, this little 6-year-old, child after my own heart, decided he wasn't going to do that. He was going to disobey that teacher because he did not do anything wrong, and he didn't understand why he should be paying the price for what someone else did. And he got into such a temper and a rage. He went straight to the office. And he was in such a tantrum, telling them he is not going to do what that teacher said because he didn't do it. It is not right. They had to call his sister. She was older, to help to calm him. And they called me at home. And when I went and heard the story, and I said to those in the office and the principal, that is not right. The whole class should not be punished for what one pupil did. Well, they did eventually. I shouldn't say eventually. They did, as of that day, stop that. It was forbidden to punish a whole class for what one pupil did. And now if a 6-year-old could know that, I don't see why adults cannot. Now, there is such a thing as group karma. Now that is interesting, because sometimes what we as a group do, like for example, destroying the environment, we as a group will have to pay. And in that sense, one can say that your children and grandchildren will reap that woe. But then, guess what? In the world of reincarnation, it is not your children and grandchildren, you as well. Remember, you will be born again. That's what reincarnation is. So you are also going to reap what you are sowing now and creating crises for the climate. So, and also as a group, right? Casey gave an example. And there are examples on earth now, but I won't quote them, not at this moment, it's too raw. But Casey's example was the conquistadors in Central America and the genocide and the atrocities that they committed against the Mayans and the Incas, for example. They reincarnated during the Franco Civil War. And so what you had often was mother betraying her children, or children betraying their parents, or wife betraying husband. That was them trying to expiate and karma, the law of cause and effect. Now, in Jamaica, and I like to add my Jamaican, but there's a saying in Jamaica, Jamaican proverb for just about every scenario. In Jamaica, they say, every puss had a 4 o'clock. Every cat has their 4 o'clock. Your turn is coming. Or, today for me, tomorrow for you. Today it's my turn, tomorrow will be yours. So in other words, let us not rejoice at the misfortune of others. We have all committed sins or incorrect actions, spiritual mistakes. And we all have to expiate. Once again, don't think of karma as revenge. I know people like to say karma is a B word. And sometimes that karma plays out in the same lifetime. And other times it will seem as if, and I don't want to say it this way, but I will, as if some people get away. They commit all these atrocities. We could think of Stalin. And he more or less died peacefully in his bed. But in another lifetime, or more than one lifetimes, it will play out for him, whether verbatim or in rhyme. And even though we know, some of us will know why certain things are happening and why certain groups or a person is encountering what he or she is encountering, it is simply, we must not rejoice, but we must have empathy and wish them well and light so that they can go through whatever hardships they will have to go through, because they chose that, to come back and to try to expiate whatever they needed to expiate. Now, every blessing, everything, even the hardships are a blessing. And no matter the hardships, if we can endure and learn, it is one rung higher on that soul of restoration. Once again, it's a hard road to travel and a mighty long way to go. Knowing the history of our soul and why we're going through whatever we're going through will help us to navigate that hard road and shorten that journey, that long, long journey. Now, as I said before, sin is a spiritual mistake. It's an incorrect action, whether against ourselves, like when we abuse ourselves with whatever we're doing. It is an abusing others, doing harm to others. It is a contravention, a breaking of the principles of the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man. We must adhere to those. And the only way we can adhere to the fatherhood of God is to take care of ourselves and take care of our brothers, the brotherhood of man. Now, intention will also determine what constitutes a sin. It is a manifestation, a sin is, of one or more weaknesses in our soul. Consequently, no institution, religious, political, or otherwise, can determine what a sin is. A sin is determined universally, divinely, irrespective of, and transcending all masks. And the masks are like religion, the system, or political persuasion, languages, and so on. Unconditional forgiveness and unconditional love. Humility and judgment. Humility opens the door to learning, and judgment closes it. When we are humble, we admit to our mistakes with redemptive guilt. We ask for help. We say, "Teach me." so that I can learn. And we forgive ourselves and do our best to institute corrective actions and move forward. We forgive ourselves unconditionally or others unconditionally, because unconditional forgiveness is, guess what? A liberating force that gives us the wings to fly and be free. Feel like a bird, indeed. We respect the differences in each other, with one caveat, that those differences must adhere to the divine principles, fatherhood of God, brotherhood of man, etc. So therefore, we can respect the differences in each other, in differences in culture. However, if that culture, that cultural difference, or there's a practice, for example, let's take honor killing. You cannot respect that because that breaks the divine principles of the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man, because we're doing harm. We're usurping the free will of someone, and we are taking their lives at times. That is one difference we have a duty not to respect. Judgment, on the other hand, closes the door to learning. When we judge, we say that we know everything, and therefore we cannot learn. We don't need to learn. We forgive and we love. Well, we won't even forgive ourselves because we don't think we have done anything wrong. But we forgive others, maybe, and we might love others, maybe, with conditions. I forgive you, but, well, we know best, and our way is the only and the superior way. And so therefore, when someone who is, well, let's say judgmental, they will do the same actions as those they judge beneath them. But they don't see anything wrong with that. They feel they have a right to do what they do because they're the ones doing it. But somebody else doesn't have a right. It's wrong that way. But if it is an incorrect action, it doesn't matter who does it. It's still incorrect. And because those who judge close the door to learning, and they think that their way is the best and only way and superior, they tolerate. They tolerate. My way is better, but all right, I'll tolerate what you're doing. We use destructive guilt when we judge to usurp the will of others and become burden-laden and cannot fly. And that's what many religious institutions do. They cause people to feel guilty. Always guilty. This guilt, that's wrong. That's destructive guilt. Or if you cheat on your spouse, for example, and that spouse says, well, I forgive you, but they never make you They never let you forget it. They use it as what I call a beating stick to you every time. That's not forgiveness. Now, I expand on these facts obviously in some of my books, which you can see on my website. Now, reincarnation, what is it? Reincarnation is the vehicle to facilitate the purification and restoration of our soul, bringing our souls back into equilibrium, whereby our spirits take on different bodies in different lifetimes. We are born over and over again. And the reason is different bodies because that's organic. That is of the earth. So it is temporary. It will not last forever. And plus, we can't do it all that purification. And I explain that, of course, at length in my books. We can't do it all at once. It would be just too difficult and impossible. Now, each lifetime is a karmic journey. And each karmic journey is made up of different, smaller karmic journeys. Some of us have more smaller karmic journeys than others. And eventually I will outline how many karmic journeys I've had in this karmic journey in this lifetime. When we come to expiate or to purify our souls, to, let's say, settle one or more karmic debts with others. So those are those little karmic journeys. Or to improve ourselves, to fulfill our self-soul contract, like getting over a phobia. Because we have those with ourselves, improving self. Now, our different karmic journeys is the reason, as I said, we are not born equal as men. We have different talents, skill sets, likes and dislikes, strengths and weaknesses. Equal, as I said, it's not normative, it's not subjective, it's not to say one is better than the other. Our different karmic journeys determine who we are. There are many different versions or interpretations of reincarnation. And just about every culture, including Christianity actually, though Christianity is not a culture, but including Christianity, has some iteration of reincarnation. In Christianity, it has been expunged, formally expunged by Theodora and Justinian, the Emperor Justinian. Theodora was his empress. Because in the case of Justinian and his wife, they could never accept the fact that in death we are equal. Peasant and emperor, they thought, rich and pauper, advance in the restoration of your soul, and the pauper and the peasant could advance even faster than the emperor. No way. And so they expunged Origen, the church father, one of the original, who advanced what they call a pre-existence of a soul. But once again, you can read my book, Another World Through the Eyes of the Soul, or Death, the Welcome Breather. Okay, you can read that one. I will list them below. Actually, I'll list all of them below, so you don't necessarily have to go to my website, although that would not be a bad idea. And so they declared origin anathema, sort of like an outcast. No, he's like, taboo with this. Of course, now we know that the masks of king and queen, empress, emperor, is totally relevant in the eyes of the soul, and in reincarnation, that's totally relevant. And it's around these masks that we actually incur a lot of karmic debt. Masks, for example, are irrelevant in determining what rung of the ladder you reach. What we do is we weaponize the masks, right? We weaponize them. But we will get to that once again later on. Some cultures weaponize reincarnation. How do they do that? Well, they use it to subjugate some of their brothers, some of the population, by telling them that they must accept abuse and the lower levels of society, lower classes. They must accept their lot as paupers. They must accept their lot where those of the higher classes can spit on them and treat them anyway, and they have no protection. They abuse them and tell them, well, based on our religion or our views, if you do not accept and be humble and take whatever abuse we give you, you will be born maybe as an ant that we can crush in another lifetime. That's not reincarnation. No. That's man talking. That's coming from no divine being. And I will get to that so that you will know when messages are good, when they're the correct messages, and when they're not. We must remember that there is a supreme being, something that is greater than us, and that we are all brothers when we do and commit spiritual mistakes and abuse others. Tolerate versus respect. I think we went over that. Tolerate implies supremacy. My way's better, but I'll tolerate you. You're beneath us and our view, but we will tolerate you. Respect with the caveat, adherence to the divine principles is equality. And you can understand what I mean when I say about the tolerate and judgment when I'm going to use the war in Gaza as an example. When we see the same crimes or the same actions being executed by somebody else, and the West criticize, they're appalled. And when similar acts are being committed by Israel, they cannot see the similarity. Is it because they're blind and we say double standard? No. For them, double standard means that you're equal. And Palestinians, they're colored. They're brown peoples. Oh, they're people who are white amongst Palestinians. Palestinians are of every shade, every color. But they're considered brown. They're not considered white. And they're not Europeans. So they're less than human beings, and that's why it is difficult. Forget about geopolitical issues here. That is why it is difficult for the Western powers, most of them, to see the double standards, to sense and feel the suffering of even babies. That is why, from their vantage point, that is why. Now, each one of us, no matter what incorrect actions we're committing, at some point, we will come around to the light and we will restore equilibrium to our soul. It is not a matter of if, but one of when. No one is condemned forever. That's something that is greater than us. Our Creator is not vindictive and cruel as we are. That's why that something that is greater than us is greater than us. Death. What is death? Death is the welcome breather that facilitates reincarnation. After death, we return to the spiritual plane and learn, review, and decide with our guides and others of hierarchy, depending on who our guides are, how we're going to expiate, so-called settle our debt then, or karmic debt, and what the next journey will be. We choose with advice the journey that we are going to go on. We can listen to the advice of those of our guides, or not listen. It is up to us, because we have a free will. And that's why they're called guides, not dictators. And because we choose the journey that we want to go on in a particular, and what we did debts, so to speak, that we want to settle in a particular journey, God never gives us more than we can bear. We are the ones who choose our journey. Sometimes we believe that we have reached that point where we will or can expiate karmic debt, and we find that that journey is too difficult for us, and so we might have stillbirth. We change our minds, and that's up to us. We try again. Sometimes when it becomes too great for us, that journey is so arduous, it is so difficult. It's a hard road to travel. Sometimes we commit suicide. Sometimes we encounter crib death. Now, I didn't say that crib death, sudden infant death syndrome sits. I did not say that it is because we decide not to continue with this journey because it might be too difficult. I said it could be one of the reasons why. There are other physical reasons. We know whether you sleep on the side, the back, or the belly, you put the baby. And I discussed that in my book, Another World Through the Eyes of the Soul. There are a lot of things that I discuss in that book. Suicide, the Great Pyramid, and all of that. Just about everything. I'll have to add an index to it, which I haven't. And I will do that in the coming year. Now, let's go on to soul contracts. What's a soul contract? Or soul purpose? Same thing. That is what we decide we are going to do in between lifetimes on our journey with others. And when we're deciding to expiate certain karmic debt, we have to decide all those things with others. So, it's others are involved and they have to agree. Now, self-soul contract, that is what we are going to do with ourselves. That is a contract that we will have with ourselves. Self-improvement, getting over a phobia, for example, or stepping out from the shadows, as I have done right now and right here in front of you. As I said, I had to make myself more visible so that I can reach you to deliver the messages, and that's my sole purpose in this, the final part of my karmic journey in this lifetime. Some of us try not to reincarnate when we should, believing that we can cheat karma. And so we choose only to reincarnate when we find the opportunity, and I'm pulling my chair back and forth here, when we can gain power. Thus, it will take us a much longer time to restore balance to our souls because we don't take the time to learn. So we keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again. The war in Gaza, or anywhere we see the practices of supremacist ideology often reflect souls who believe they can cheat karma, and they tend to stay on those lower rungs for a long time because they will not reincarnate in their proper soul cycles, which is the average is 50 to 100 years. It can be over that or under that. Less than 500 years though, but more than 300. Okay, that's the length. And you can definitely be about a year at the earliest. Some kids who die young reincarnate very quickly. These souls who only reincarnate when they see the chance for power, the only time they will choose to reincarnate quite early, and that is what is happening right now, that is one of the reasons why it is so great. One of those fewer, greater periods of transition is this is the perfect timing for them when they see they can gain, and it appears as if they've gained all the levers of power. And I explained that in the book Thoughts on the Past. You will see and understand why. And so they've reincarnated quite quickly this time. Less than 50 years. Way less than 50 years. But we will get to that. The Akashic Records. The Akashic Records is a repository, a library of every past, present, and future deeds and thoughts of all spirits, all souls. However, because we have free will, some of our current actions and choices we make will determine the future. And it's, we can discuss that more in details. There's a lot more detail to that. These records, enable us to predict the past, the present, and the future. Those records enable psychic mediums to do their predictions oftentimes and to know the journey of each soul. You need to get into those records and their rules to getting into those records, which, of course, at a later date, yes, you will discuss those. Masks. What are masks? Masks are the cloaks we wear, such as color, race, religion, political persuasion, language, economic status. Each of us wear many masks. I wear gender female, race black. That's what I'm labeled as, even though my genealogical records would show that I am a kaleidoscope of races, cultures, and ethnicities. I wear the mask of no religious affiliation. We tend to shift to a particular mask, shift to the mask that gives us the most power. We use the masks to segregate and separate. And around these masks that are totally relevant, except if there is a particular karmic debt or reason, karmic reason, as to why we choose to enter into that imprint, what I call a mask, as well. They're totally relevant in that case. Now the masks, for example, we discriminate and separate according to race, and we declare a supremacy according to race. To declare a supremacy according to race and religion, we can combine them. But political persuasion, for example, combines one or more of the masks. I go into details once again on that in the book that is coming out in a couple of weeks, thoughts on the past. Now, I did say that we are all fallen angels. And the single goal of all our struggles from the first moment we decided to enter into the processes on earth, rebel against our destiny, according to Edgar Cayce, is to have power. That's all it is. No matter how you spin it, no matter what you say, the object is power, domination, dominion over each other and over the earth. Ridiculous, believe it or not. We rebel against our own destiny, and it's basically selfishness, absolute selfishness. Now, guides and teachers, and this is very important because we're always giving messages. We're always saying we have divine messages to give, right? Getting it from here, there, or wherever. So it's very important for us to know when a messenger is speaking truth or not. It's very simple to know. Guides and teachers are not necessarily found in institutions or seminaries, churches, mosques, universities. They don't necessarily have a PhD. Guides and teachers may, and that's very important, may be found in these institutions and may have a PhD. Guides and teachers have no particular mass. They can be of any race, any culture, any religion, any political persuasion, speak any language, any economic status. And because someone has money does not mean that you should idolize them or that they have the secrets to what morality is. And because someone has money doesn't mean that God bless them and not you. That has nothing to do with blessings. Now, your guide or teacher can be a child. We can learn from children. They're just spirits, or we sometimes call them old spirits in little bodies. Your guide can be a pauper, someone without a home, a homeless person, a king, or a wealthy man. Can be. They can be a woman, a man, or any gender. They can be black or white. They can be any religion, as I said. They can speak any language. We know them. And how do we know them? We know them because they never tell us to hate. And they never advance any supremacist ideology or practices. They never tell us to harm anything or anyone. They never tell us that they're fighting for God. They never tell us to follow them or that they are the leader and they want to lead you. They never do. And once again, I'm going to say, we cannot fight for God. We cannot fight on behalf of God. Because then that something that is greater than us would not be greater than us. That means that we would have to change that God as the Ndigbo or Igbo in Nigeria, in their traditional beliefs. When a God no longer serves them, they would change that God. They would retire that God and get another one. When we are born, most of us do not remember our past lives. We only need to know the history of our soul as is relevant to the current karmic journey. Many of us do not remember because we are not ready to remember. Sometimes we might have done some things, committed some incorrect actions, some spiritual mistakes that would traumatize us if we knew what we did. And then we're not ready yet. We haven't reached that rung on the ladder to be able to digest that. Example, and I'm going to go back to the war on Gaza. Let's take, and this is for entertainment purposes, they say, I must say. Let's take, for example, Linda Thomas Greenfield, the U.S. ambassador, the lady, the black lady. And I'm saying black because that's another thing suffering does not enable. Who quibbles about crossing already crossed T's and dotting already dotted I's to run out the clock so that she can give more time for more children and babies to be slaughtered. Or Anthony Blinken, the man with the forked tongue, the true arsonist, and the pretend fireman who waves his deals, but each time he ventures into the Middle East, the IDF is about to cross another red line. And that can be verified by checking what Israel does days before or while he's there or days after. Some red line is about to be crossed. Or Yoav Gallant, excuse me, Benjamin Netanyahu, or any soldier in Gaza who has committed all those heinous atrocities. When they will finally decide to reincarnate in their proper soul cycles, and they start to take seriously and move up that ladder, one, it would be very difficult to reveal unto them what we see happening in Gaza right now. They would be traumatized. And so it would take them more incarnations to reach that level where they can see and know exactly what they have done. They would understand then, just as we all must, just as I, in my journeys, have not met upon having committed those particular atrocities, but I've had my share, and I will share that with you in my journey in the 1800s. Not grave like that, no. But we've all, and that's why I say, I'm harsh and I'm critical at times, but that's the only way we can move forward. So that's why we are not privy to certain things, and you will find out that I wasn't privy to a certain lifetime. I didn't commit anything, but there was a reason. And some of us, and I would like to say, if we have, for example, the chance to go back into the history of our souls, it is not for aggrandizement or to say, "Oh, I was a king," or "I was an empress," or "I was this great general." And sometimes we find out that we were historical figures where there is history. And I will share those who I was. But that doesn't mean anything. It's irrelevant. The position is irrelevant. It is what did you do while you were in those positions. And for me, whilst I have had more than a few lifetimes as historical figures, or in historical situations, and everything is history really. I've been a hobo, a Russian hobo. I used to be a jokester, make a lot of people laugh, and travel around with a stick on my shoulder. And you know the way they tie, one would tie like the bag or the package or whatever it is, and walk with that stick, right? I was a horse thief. And the horse is my favorite animal, but I was young, played my music, just free and having a good time, stole a horse, and I was hanged for it, right? I've been poor, very poor. I've had times once I died of starvation, which would explain why I'll go for hours and not even remember to eat. And that's not good. So whilst I've had many lifetimes in positions of power, I have also been poor. And I've also made, sometimes, not often, done what I wanted to do, like a stubborn ram, not conscious of making other people unhappy. And I will get into those details in another book when I give the full count of my lifetimes. I've been privy to a lot of those lifetimes because this is my sole purpose. Now, and that is why I am testament, serving as a testament and living proof of the truth that is reincarnation and its facts, which one day you too will do so. So when you do have the history and journey of your soul, usually you will only get that which is relevant in the current lifetime in which you find yourself. So remember now, it's not for aggrandizement, and it's not who you were or what you were in a given lifetime. It is what did you do? Your actions. That is what is important. Now, reincarnation and its applications, and I'm going to stop this particular video once I just quote the applications, just 2 or 3 lines, and then I'll make another video shortly. I'm gonna take a break, but I know I've got to get it done. My guide said forget the gussing up your hair and all of that stuff. You need to get this done. You need to stop procrastinating, because procrastination is the thief of time. So, reincarnation, the applications, and that's usually the key, right? It's good to know something, but how do we apply it? How do we apply the knowledge? Knowledge without application is, well, some people would say it's sort of worthless. We need to be able to learn how to apply this. Now, knowing the history of your soul can help you in choosing your vocations. It can help you to understand your phobias and your fears. Because just imagine when sometimes we are traumatized, or if we have addiction problems, for example, and we go to the therapist, the counselor, clinical psychologist, whomever. Sometimes they will take us back on a journey, all the way back to our childhood, to see what caused us to have that phobia, that fear, that addiction. Well, what we do with the history of the soul is to go even further back, because even going back to our childhood in a current lifetime does not necessarily guarantee you're going to get the answer there. So we'll go back into the different lifetimes, and I will show you in the next video that I'm going to do in a short while how that can apply. I'm going to use myself as the testament and living proof of how that works. So, as I said, can apply, know what vocation you're best suited for, because sometimes we're confused. We have so many talents, but maybe there's only one that we need in this particular lifetime. We have to decide. Phobias and fears. In relationships, we might see someone we knew before, but you know what? You need to stay away from that person, because that is going to be a toxic one, and you're not supposed to be together in this lifetime. We can use the history of our soul to address health issues, would be they mental, physical, spiritual, mental, whatever. Like, why am I so sensitive in my lung? Because each of us is born with a weak spot. Some are more prone to have problems with the head, the mental issues. Some are more prone to having lung problems. Some are more prone to having heart problems, and we can say that it is hereditary. But then, that again, we can explain that with reincarnation, or the fact that perhaps it is not whether you're left brain or right brain that determines your personality, but rather it is the history of your soul, your karmic journeys, that's dictating right brain or left brain. And that's very interesting. And yes, that will be discussed in my book that is coming up, I suppose, maybe in 2 years' time, where I delve into health through the eyes of the soul. Reincarnation helps us to address pressing questions, like when will war ever end? Why do some groups of people suffer? Our likes and dislikes, our talents. What is my purpose on earth? And recurring dreams. And I'm going to cut this video right here, and shortly I will be doing the second one where we get into all these questions, and it will be exciting. We'll know why we choose our own names and what that means. In another while, I will see you. One divine, universal love.